Story 1. The sun was setting over the Grand Canyon, casting a fairy glow over the canyon walls. A group of hikers were making their way back to their campsite, tired but satisfied after a long day of exploring. As they rounded a bend in the trail, they came across a small clearing. In the middle of the clearing was a campfire, and around the campfire was a group of people. The hikers stopped in their tracks, surprised to see anyone else in the park at this time of day. The people around the campfire were all dressed in strange clothing, and they had strange symbols painted on their faces. They looked up at the hikers and smiled, but their smiles were not friendly. "Welcome," said one of the people. "We've been waiting for you." The hikers started to back away, but the people around the campfire stood up and blocked their path. "Don't be afraid," said the same person. "We won't hurt you. We just want to show you something." The people around the campfire began to chant, and the flames of the campfire grew higher and higher. The hikers backed away until they were pressed against the edge of the clearing. Suddenly, the flames of the campfire shot up in the air, and the people around the campfire disappeared. The hikers were left alone in the clearing, surrounded by darkness. They stood there for a moment, too scared to move. Then they turned and ran, not stopping until they were safe back at their campsite. The next morning, the hikers went back to the clearing, but there was no sign of the campfire or of the people they had seen. The only thing that had remained was a single symbol carved into the ground. The hikers never found out what the symbol meant, but they never forgot that night that they saw when they saw the fire in the clearing. Story 2. The sun was shining brightly in the sky, and the birds were singing in the trees. A young woman named Sarah was hiking in Yosemite National Park. She was enjoying the beautiful scenery and the fresh air. As she was hiking, she came across a small trail that led off into the woods. She decided to explore the trail, curious to see where it would lead. The trail wound its way through the woods, and Sarah soon found herself in a clearing. In the middle of the clearing was a large tree. Sarah stopped to admire the tree, and as she did, she noticed something strange. There was a hole in the tree, and it was filled with bones. Sarah gasped and stepped back. She had never seen anything like it before. She started to walk away, but then she heard a noise. She turned around and saw a figure standing in the shadows. The figure was tall and thin, and had long, sharp claws. Sarah screamed and ran, but the figure chased after her. She ran as fast as she could, but the figure was faster. When she thought she was going to be caught, she saw the trail ahead of her. She ran as fast as she could and burst out of the woods. She ran down the trail, not stopping until she reached the parking lot. She collapsed on the ground, gasping for breath. She looked back at the woods, but the figure was gone. Sarah never went back to Yosemite National Park, and she never forgot the day she saw the tree of bones. Story 3. The sun was setting over Yellowstone National Park, casting a golden glow over the geysers and hot springs. A group of friends were camping in the park and were enjoying the peace and quiet of the wilderness. As the sun sank lower into the sky, the friends started to get ready for bed. They built a campfire and roasted marshmallows, then sat around the fire and told stories. One of the friends, a young woman named Emily, told a story about a mysterious creature that was said to live in the park. The creature was said to be large and hairy, with sharp claws and teeth. It was said to prey on hikers and campers who got lost in the woods. The other friends laughed at Emily's story, but she could tell that they were a little bit scared. After all, they were all alone in the wilderness, and anything was possible. The friends went to bed, but they couldn't sleep. They kept thinking about the creature that Emily had told them about. They imagined it lurking in the shadows, waiting to pounce. In the middle of the night, Emily woke up to a noise. She sat up in her sleeping bag and listened. The noise came again. It sounded like something was moving around the outside of the tent. Emily was terrified. She wanted to scream, but she was afraid that whatever was outside would hear her. She lay there in her sleeping bag, her heart pounding, waiting to see what would happen next. The noise stopped. Emily waited for a few minutes, then she slowly unzipped the tent and peered outside. The night was dark, but she could see something moving in the shadows. It was the creature. It was even bigger and more terrifying than Emily had imagined. It had glowing red eyes and sharp claws that glistened in the moonlight. The creature saw Emily and roared. Emily screamed and ran back into her tent. She zipped up the tent and huddled in her sleeping bag, too scared to move. The creature scratched at the tent, trying to get in. Emily could hear its claws tearing at the fabric. She knew that she was in danger, but she didn't know what to do. Suddenly, the creature stopped scratching. Emily held her breath listening. She could hear the creature moving away into the darkness. Emily stayed in the tent for the rest of the night. She didn't dare go outside. She didn't know if the creature was still out there, waiting for her. The next morning, Emily and her friends packed up their campsite and left Yellowstone National Park. They never went back. They never spoke of the creature again. Story 4. The sun was setting as the two hikers made their way through the forest. They had been hiking for hours, and they were tired and hungry. They were also starting to get a little bit scared. They had been hearing strange noises all day, and they had seen a few strange things. Suddenly they heard a loud noise behind them. They turned around, but they couldn't see anything. They started to walk faster, but the noise started to get closer. They could hear something crashing through the bushes. They ran as fast as they could, but the thing was gaining on them. They could hear its breathing, which was heavy. They were almost to the edge of the forest, but they knew they wouldn't make it. The thing burst out of the bushes and grabbed one of the hikers. The other hikers screamed and tried to help, but it was too late. The thing had dragged the hiker into the forest and disappeared. The survivor ran as fast as he could until he reached the edge of the forest. He collapsed on the ground, gasping for breath. He knew he would never forget what he had seen that day. The next day, a search party was organized to find the missing hiker. They searched the forest for hours, but they couldn't find a trace of him. They eventually gave up and called off the search. The survivor never told anyone what he had seen that day. He was too afraid. He knew that if he told anyone, they would think he was crazy. But he knew what he had seen. He had seen something that was not of this world, something evil, something that had killed his friend. He never went back to the national park. He couldn't bear to go back to the place where he had seen such a horror. But he never forgot what he had seen, and he knew that the thing was still out there somewhere, waiting. Thank you for watching my video, and I hope that you have a great day.